This video is intended for women that have menstrual pain or endometriosis pain. I'm going to start off the video telling you my story and some exercises that you can do to reduce the pain considerably. Then at the end, I'm going to explain some other ways that you can reduce your pain that most people don't seem to be aware of and can be a massive step. A few of you may know that last year I had my second laparoscopy, which was an extensive one, and it was an emergency surgery. For a few days before the emergency surgery, I had to prepare and see a lot of doctors, and for the next 6 months or so, I was also constantly going to appointments with specialists, gynecologists, surgeons, and one thing that I heard over and over and over again was that they wish that more women were aware of these practices for reducing pain. And I wish I had had somebody to show me these, because I just figured these out on my own by coincidence. A little bit more about me in reference to this. I have had a very severe case of endometriosis since I was a kid. My understanding is that of the about 10% of women that have endometriosis, about 10-15% of those cases are considered as severe as mine. So I highly empathize with those that may be watching this video for help, and I really hope that this can be of help. Before we get to the exercises, I want to explain why they are of so much help in a nutshell. Basically, when we start experiencing the pain and during the pain, the body, in an attempt to protect itself, it starts to tighten the muscles around the area that has pain. But that tightening for a lot of us becomes pretty extreme, causing the pain to get worse. Those muscles end up not relaxing back to normal, and if you are similar to myself a few years back, you might be suffering from other chronic pains or what seem to be other chronic pains, but it's actually, at least it was for myself, it is actually all this tightening of muscles and these muscles not relaxing, and that's why the pain is staying there. So these exercises are basically to relax those muscles. I think it is most helpful to start doing these about 3 days before your menstrual cycle, or 3 days before you're used to starting to feel the pain, and practice them all up to the day that you start experiencing pain. Honestly, it is a good idea to learn massaging and stretching exercises for your entire body, because one muscle being tight can actually just make that whole chain of muscles feel really tight and cause discomfort or pain. But if you're going to choose the most basic ones to reduce menstrual and endometriosis pain, you want to focus on the glutes, basically your butt. Specifically, the gluteus medius is important, which I will show you where that is later. Then there is the lower back, the abdomen, and your quads, basically the front of your legs. The front of your upper legs. So I'm going to lead you through some massaging exercises with a roller and a ball, and some stretching exercises. The stretching exercises, I highly recommend warming up before you do them by getting some movement. Maybe go for a walk, a little bit of a jog, or whatever gets your blood pumping. Maybe 10 minutes of that before you do the stretches. I learned in this last surgery that a whole bunch of my organs were attached to each other, and that they were also attached to my tailbone, and it turns out that that was why I couldn't actually achieve back flexibility, and why sometimes I felt that it was quite painful to stretch my abdomen without warming up, and this may be the case for you. So I would suggest being mindful of this and be very careful with yourself while you're doing these exercises. Also, before I start showing you these exercises, I want to make it clear that I am not a PT or a specialist. I am sharing my experience with you. Since there are so many resources out there for learning these stretches, I'm just going to perform them for you, tell you key points, and let you know what they're called. The first stretch is going to be the couch stretch. For the couch stretch, you want to make sure that the glute or butt on the leg that you are stretching the quad on is engaged. So it's almost like you are tucking in your butt a little bit, and that will give you that deep stretch in the quad and in the hip flexor. The second stretch is going to be the Cobra abdominal stretch. With this stretch, make sure that your chest and your face are facing forward as much as possible, and that your hips are actually slightly off the ground. Third, we have the glute stretch. So for the glute stretch, you want to be with a neutral lower back. You want the leg that is not being stretched to be somewhat at a 90-degree angle and the foot is straight up. You also want the leg that's being stretched at a 90-degree angle. You want your ankle over your knee, and you also want this foot to be facing straight up. And then keeping your back maintaining neutral. Then you start to pull on the leg that is not being stretched. You're going to feel a stretch right on your glute and up the side of your thigh. Then we have a pigeon stretch, which again, you want your foot 90 degrees to your shin, and your shin kind of 90 degrees to your thigh. You're going to feel the stretch on the side of your leg again and on your glute. For the massagers, you want to use a ball or a roller. You use a ball if you want to get even deeper into the muscle, but I'm just going to show you things with the roller. I'm going to start off with the lower back. For the lower back, you want to put your leg over the other leg at about a 90-degree angle, and you want to start rolling over the lower back, putting your weight mostly on your arm. You don't want to just lean over it. That's not going to really get your lower back. And just repeat for the other side. Then for your glute, you're going to keep a similar pose, but you're going to focus the roller on the glutes of your lower back. Just kind of roll over it and just find the spots going at every ankle. The gluteus medius is harder to get to, and personally was what was causing me the most discomfort. Is right below your hip bone and right kind of above your general glute. So with that spot, I particularly like to use a ball, generally actually a smaller ball than this one. So something like this, and then put that in there and really get in there if you can. It's a kind of hurts so good kind of situation, like most massages. Next is the quad. The best way that I find for massaging the quad is putting the roller underneath your quad, having a plank position, and your leg to the side to put your weight, most of your weight onto, and then use your arms to kind of roll your leg over the roller. Now that I have shown you some ways to relax those muscles that might be causing you pain, I'm going to share other ways that you could possibly step it up and possibly reduce your pain even further, strengthening through range of motion. So when you do these stretching exercises, they are adding flexibility to your body, at least temporarily. Strengthening to range of motion is basically adding this flexibility to your body, but you're actually making your muscles have to gain strength in that new state of flexibility. So when the muscle feels strong in that new length that you have given it, it is less likely to retighten. So it is less likely for you to start experiencing as much pain. Another step that you can take that made a massive difference for me is getting blood tests. So blood tests will let you know if the reason that you're experiencing these pains and the reason that you have such a case of endometriosis is that your hormones are not balanced as well as they could be. And sometimes they might look like they're balanced, but then when you have a naturopath look at it, they might let you know that there's all these other patterns in your body that are making it look like maybe something's not functioning right, and that's what's keeping your hormones from functioning well within your body. I highly recommend seeing a naturopath to get these blood tests done. I used to be a skeptic, but I've completely changed my mind. Most insurances cover naturopaths, including Medicare and Medicaid. Something else that could make a massive difference for you is seeing a pelvic floor physical therapist. They can tell you if there are muscles within your pelvic floor that are always tight, and they can actually do exercises that pretty much nobody else can do that will help you release those muscles. A fourth step that can make a big difference for you that you may have already heard is having an animal-based anti-inflammatory diet. I personally have found that it makes a difference. The last thing that I would say you might want to look into is heating pads. If you do decide to do this, please try to do it before you reach that threshold of pain in which there's no coming back. So what I want to share is that personally I have found by mistake that heat aggravates my pain a lot. So what I have learned is that all those menstrual cycles in which I was told to heat my abdomen to make it feel better, it was actually making the pain so much worse. And now I simply just do not do that and find that the pain is considerably less. I swear by warm baths, and some heat does help, but anything that's actually hot, like a heat pad, is not a good idea for me. Comment if you want any detailed posts on anything that I mentioned, want me to explain anything further, or want similar content in the future.